It's all things volunteers. Grab a drink and join us on tonight's Tailgate. All right, well, thank you everybody for joining us on tonight's Tailgate. As always, I am Luke, and I am joined by Michael and Dennis.
Hello.
And tonight, our guests tonight are the Vol Bros, Rustin and Evan. Guys, how you doing tonight?
Great. Excited to be awesome.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate you being with us and talking some volunteer football today.
That's right.
So what was your joke that you were wanting to tell?
Oh, no, thank you for volunteering to come on.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Nice. Well played.
He's been planning that all week.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so one of the first things that we like to ask everybody who comes on is just your volunteer story. So like what had you guys become volunteer fans?
Evan, I'll let you go.
Well, so I'm the younger of the two brothers, and I vividly remember sitting in the early to mid-'90s in our living room with Rustin and our dad, watching Jefferson Pilot Sports, the GOAT, Jefferson Pilot Sports. And we would turn off the audio on the television and turn on John Ward on the radio. And that was on the same radio that my dad would listen to the Four Tops 8-tracks on.
Mm-hmm.
But you had to put a toothpick in the corner to prop it up so it hit the right angle so it'd play. But I remember watching all the way back then, and we're born and raised in Chattanooga, Tennessee, about an hour and a half south of Knoxville. So we were born into it.
That's awesome.
Yeah. During my childhood, I tried to be a fan of anybody but Tennessee because I was surrounded by it all the time. I think at one point I even had a Notre Dame starter jacket.
Oh my goodness.
But being in Chattanooga, and then I played college baseball in Bristol. When you live in East Tennessee your whole life, you're just kind of inundated with it. And I think it was during college I finally decided, okay, I just need to be a Tennessee fan. And so, because I was just surrounded by it constantly.
Yeah, and we will post some links for those of you who are not our age on what 8-tracks and starter jackets are. So that's
and Jefferson Pilot Sports.
Yeah, exactly. We'll have to do a little education on that.
Yeah.
That requires me to Google extra stuff. I don't really want to do that.
All right.
If you haven't YouTubed the Daves on Jefferson Pilot Sport, you haven't really experienced college football.
That's right.
Cutting edge graphics.
Fair enough. Well, so obviously the big news for this upcoming season is really like, how is Nico going to play? How is the team going to surround him? Things like that. What are you guys expecting from a standpoint of the season? Not giving your prediction or anything, but like, what do you think, like how Nico's going to perform? How do you think the team is going to actually play around him? As well as the other big crucial guys, and also want to get somewhat your take on CBS's ranking of Josh Heupel in that SEC coaches poll.
Evan, you want to take defense and I'll take offense?
There you go.
Or vice versa, either one.
Sure. You can
All right.
talk about Nico. I may talk a little bit about Nico,
Okay.
A certain offensive lineman too.
Okay. So offensively, I think Nico's going to respond really well to running this system. I think he was born for this system. My biggest fear is we're one play away from Gaston Moore.
Sure.
Because Jake Merklinger is not ready to play at the SEC level. So, I think Gaston Moore could potentially be a good game manager, but if all of a sudden we're playing 8 games with Gaston Moore as the starting quarterback, who knows how that season's going to go.
True.
On the offensive line, I think we have one of the deepest offensive lines in the SEC. Left guard is still a question mark. I believe it's going to end up being Andre Carrick. Could be Jackson Lampley, could be Dane Davis, but it'll definitely be a competition. The rest of the offensive line is pretty much done. Lance Hurd will be at left tackle. Cooper Mays will be at center. Javonte Spraggins will be at right guard, and John Campbell will slide over to right tackle. In the running back room, it looks like Cam Seldon is going to be healthy by the time season starts, so that's a huge boost. Dylan Sampson obviously will be the starter, and he's going to be an absolute star. But one name we've continually told people to watch for is Deshaun Bishop. Anybody who's from the Knoxville area who got to see Deshaun in high school knows that he is incredibly explosive. He always plays bigger than the level that he's surrounded by. And we expect him to have a breakout season. When you listen to coaches, they all bring up Deshaun Bishop all the time on their own, unsolicited. And, that to me, as a former coach, that's the thing that jumps out to me. The kids that I would talk about that I wasn't being asked about was really me saying what I was seeing in practice. From a receiver position, I think they have the deepest receiving core in the country. I don't think there's anybody with a better depth. People don't realize that because Josh Heupel has only played 3 receivers at a time the last couple of years. But this year he's got 9 guys he could potentially play, and I think is comfortable with all 9. So I would not be surprised to see 6, 7, maybe even 8 guys in the rotation. And there's some dudes in there: Brew McCoy, Chris Brazel, Squirrel White, Mike Matthews as a freshman is going to be a head turner. There's some guys that can go make some plays, and I'm excited to see this receiving core. I think that'll take a ton of pressure off of Nico.
Sure. Yeah.
Well, before I mention anything about the defense, I do want to say that everybody's talking about Nico. Everybody,
sure.
And we had a guy on our channel today leave a comment critiquing his ability to perform because we hadn't seen him very much yet. However, he walked into that bowl game against Iowa and Iowa's vaunted defense and scored multiple touchdowns on Iowa. So clearly he doesn't stink. You're the former number 1 overall player in the country for a reason coming out of high school. So I'm excited to see him play. But there is a person, and I mentioned this on our show this past Sunday, and this is kind of a hot take a little bit, I guess you could say. But there is one person who is more important than Nico on this team, and it's Cooper Mays. Cooper Mays, if people don't believe me, just go back and watch the first 4 games of last season when Cooper was hurt, and then watch the last 8 games after that. It is quite different. To hear Glenn Ellerby, Tennessee's offensive line coach, talk about him, he was like, Cooper does things for us as coaches on the field that we don't have to do anymore. He was talking about how they rely on Cooper to walk up and call, offensive line protections as he's getting the team, in less than 8 seconds lined up and snapping the ball. If Cooper is not healthy, if he gets injured, then all of a sudden Nico's having to do that.
Right. Yep.
And you don't want Nico doing that in his first year starting. Nico wants Cooper healthy. And if Cooper's healthy, look out because Nico's going to shine. So I would say Cooper Mays is the single most important person on this team, especially on the offensive side of the ball. On the defensive side of the ball, we can actually talk about defense now because we're going to be good at it. And it's exciting. We haven't had that in a while. We showed flashes of it last year. But anytime you've got Rodney Garner talking about how he feels like his defensive line room can be the best defensive line group in the country, that's not bad. That's a pretty good start. You've got 2 guys who will 100% get drafted off this line. That's James Pierce Jr. He'll be a top 3 overall pick. And Omari Thomas is also going to be drafted off this line. But they're just so deep. That's the thing. Like, they got so many guys that and they're such a veteran group. That's the thing with the offensive line. Next year they're going to be replacing 4 guys from the offensive starter off the offensive line this year. So it's one of the most veteran groups in the country. Well, this defensive line group, they got a ton of dudes who are, 4th year, 5th year, 6th year guys. And they're just, they're talking about they're going to be 14 deep on the defensive line.
And Rodney Garner has shown that he does not mind to rotate 14 guys. He
doesn't. Yep, he does.
So, it's going to be a plethora of riches. Off the edge, you've got obviously James Pierce Jr., you got Joshua Joseph, excuse me. But then right behind them, you've got guys like, Jordan Ross, who's coming in as a 5-star edge rusher. You've got people who redshirted last year, like Sean Davey and Bradley, who's going to be playing on the edge. You've got transfers coming in. The Wallace kid, can't think of his first name right now. Jamal. I knew it. Jamal Wallace, you got him coming in, who's just a freak athlete. I mean, like it's gonna be fun to watch Tennessee's defense for a change, which is honestly a welcome change. Linebacker, man, they're gonna be fine at linebacker, especially with guys like Keenan Peely, Arion Carter and Jeremiah T-Lander. They're gonna be okay there. The one question, there's one question position group on defense, and that's the secondary, and it has been for the last several years.
True.
But it's a totally new group this year. So I mean, if anybody says, well, here's what we got, they're all wrong. Like, nobody knows yet, right? Because it's going to be literally every single position is going to be brand new. Somebody back there, they will be. There might be one corner if Ricky Gibson starts. There might be one corner that has a previous starting experience, but that's it. I mean, like, it's going to be a whole new group back there, and so whereas that's been a liability in the past, people were freaking out whenever it's a brand new group, and they're like, "What are we going to do?" And they're like, why is everybody freaking out? Nobody liked the ones that were back there the last 2 years. So, I mean, like, let's give these dudes a chance, you know?
Yep, exactly.
You got Jermon McCoy coming in from Oregon State, who's an athlete. He'll be a good corner. So, I mean, really, when you look at the team, you got two question marks. One's at secondary, one's at left guard on offense. That's it. Everywhere else, you feel really good about what they got. And they actually have depth, which is nice. So, I mean, like, it's hard not to be excited as a Tennessee fan when you're looking at this season.
Yep, it's true.
Who's the when you start looking at the players, whether it's a guy that, you've mentioned like a bunch of running backs, a bunch of this, who's the guy that you're like both of you are just excited to see? Like maybe it's a random guy that we haven't seen much. Maybe it's one of those defensive linemen that's kind of down there in the depth chart. But like, who are you just excited? Who's that one guy you're watching?
Oh man, that's a good question.
You want me to go first?
Yeah, because I don't know. I got like 8 dudes for my head right now.
So I think that our defense is going to be decided by the nickel position.
Okay.
I think that is the one spot on our defense that is crucial to how Tim Banks calls his scheme. And the guy that I'm really excited to see live is Jacoby Thomas, that transferred from MTSU.
Yep.
Because last year, if you watch his film, his best game of the year was against Alabama. And, for him to shine the way he did against Alabama, against all odds, because, I mean, we know how MTSU stacked up against Alabama.
Okay.
For him to stand out the way that he did tells me that he can absolutely play at this level, and he can play in big minutes. And they really need someone to step forward. Could be Jordan Thomas, but I think it might be Jacoby, who steps up and takes that nickel job and runs with it.
Yeah. This is a really difficult question because, I mean, obviously the easy answer is Nico. Like, everybody wants to see Nico.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm trying to go off, like, just not say the obvious. But, man, I'm, like, super excited to see Dylan Sampson and Cam Selden and Deshaun Bishop in the backfield. I'm super excited to see Chris Brazzell, see what he can do.
Yeah.
I tied in. I'm excited to see Holden Stays. Like, I'm a transfer from Notre Dame. I'm excited to see what he can do. But when you look at the defense,
and also at tight end, they've talked a lot about Miles Kinselman, the transfer from Alabama. They felt like Bama didn't really use him to his potential, and they're planning to throwing the ball a lot more than Bama did. So it'll be interesting to see how they work him into the system.
Well, we won't put you on the spot too much. I mean, if you want to do like 3, that's okay. We can...
All right, well, I'm gonna go really off because I almost said Jeremiah T-Lander, because for anybody who watches the show who has not yet seen Tennessee play, just watch Jeremiah T-Lander as a linebacker.
Mm-hmm.
Dude loves contact. He is not afraid to put his head in there and hit somebody. But I'm gonna go even further off the radar. There is a true freshman who's coming in this year, right here from Chattanooga, Tennessee. His name's Boo Carter.
Mm-hmm.
Do not be shocked if you see him returning punts.
Okay.
Dude is an athlete. I mean, he is an athlete. He is dynamite with the ball in his hands, but he's going to be playing probably safety or the star, the nickel position.
Can't go wrong with that name though. Boo.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
See, I'm just surprising somebody across the middle or something.
I mean, I'll put it this way. Maryville High School is historically, year in and year out, one of the best high school football programs in the state of Tennessee.
Yep.
And this year, Boo Carter had at least one, maybe two punt return touchdowns against them. And I mean, he was making people look like it was like he was playing against a middle school team, and it's Maryville High School. Like, it was incredible. So, remember the name Boo Carter.
it'll be hard to forget.
Absolutely.
It's possible he may end up returning kickoffs and punts as a true freshman. They're really high on him.
Mm-hmm. I mean, between Boo and Squirrel, you guys got a lot of fun names to talk
We got a
about.
lot of fun names.
There's a huge furniture store in Knoxville called Brown Squirrel Furniture. Like on the side of I-75 and I-24 or 40, there's a huge brown squirrel. Like, I mean, the thing's like 30 feet tall. And how in the world they have not yet signed an NIL deal with Squirrel White, I don't know. But it's a big missed opportunity. I mean, it's just like a match made in heaven, and they haven't done it yet. So I don't know what's going on.
Maybe they'll watch and get a little get a little wise to it, because that doesn't make any sense to me either.
No.
Well, so going back to the I let you guys think about it a little bit, but what are your thoughts on was Josh Heupel was he dissed by this top 25 college football head coach, or are there issues that need to be addressed before he can start climbing up those ranks? I mean, what are you guys' thoughts?
That's the one that had him, 22nd?
Yeah, or something like that. Yep.
Yeah, and last year they had him 16, and they actually dropped him 6 spots.
Yeah.
The Eric Ainge show in Knoxville actually went through this list on, I believe it was Friday, maybe? Might have been yesterday. And they went coach by coach all the way up the list and talked about, if you were going to start a program or run a program, who would you rather have, this person or Josh Heupel?
Mm-hmm.
And by the time they were done, they had Josh Heupel number 8 instead of 22. And I'll be honest, I can't remember the exact order of everybody, but when you listen to the list as you go up the list, I kind of agreed with him. I think he's kind of in that 8 to 11 range. 22 was a farce. Like, there were people in front of him that had no business being listed in front of him. But let's be real. The most aggressive clicking fan base in America might be Vol Nation.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to make your articles go viral, just say something that pisses them off, and all of a sudden your rankings shoot way up the rating system.
That's right.
Because it will go viral.
It's true. And I'm always a big fan of underestimating somebody too. Like, just we did that to Alabama for a long time, and we got knocked around for it. So I just think that it's not a bad thing that the national media and other competitors are looking down their nose at Heupel and what he's building here.
Well, the funny thing about all of it, because that's not the only list. I mean, there was one that ranked him like 6th just in the SEC, and there was one that was like 8 just in the SEC. And what's humorous is all the coaches above him that he's beaten at Tennessee.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. He's beaten Nick Saban. He's beaten Brian Kelly.
Mm-hmm.
He beat Brian Kelly in Brian Kelly's house.
Right.
Soundly.
Madly.
He beat Dabo Sweeney. I mean, like, it's humorous. Like, all these guys he beat Jimbo Fisher, which, I mean, that doesn't mean much anymore, but
right.
Like, he's beaten all these guys, and yet they're ranked ahead of him. Like, I don't get it.
Yeah, we Dennis actually he posted one of those to our chat just a couple days ago, and I just went off because they had Drinkowitz and Stoops ahead of Heupel, and I was like, that just doesn't even make sense from a logistics perspective. So
yeah, he made me put it on do not disturb for a little bit.
Yeah,
he kept texting. I was like, I can't do that right now.
Even Mark Stoops wouldn't vote for Mark Stoops ahead of Josh Heupel. Like, that's...
Well, I'm going with you. I've been no disrespect. I've been looking down because I've been going through it, doing the exact same thing. Like, do I want to take Josh Heupel? And I got to 11, and I went James Franklin. Okay, 12 is Lance Leopold, Chris Kleeman, Lane Kiffin, Mike Gundy, But then I got down to Dave Doran and Luke Fickle, and I just went, no. And then Kirk Ferentz, like, can he even survive the trip? So it's just like, yeah, I'm with you. Like, it doesn't make much sense.
What they actually came to was they felt like Lance Leipold was too low. They felt like that if you put him somewhere like LSU, he would be top 2 or 3 every year, because of what he's dealing with at Kansas. But, there was Dave Doran was the one that was the ultimate insult. It was like, seriously.
Yeah, I would say I'm an Ohio State fan, so like Luke Fickle does have like a little special place in my heart, but not enough to say that he's above just Josh Heupel. Can't do that.
Well, okay, so I invite you to consider this. When you think about what makes a good coach, let's think all the way back to, and listen, this is saying a lot that a Tennessee fan would say this name, but think about Steve Spurrier. Steve Spurrier did things that no one else was doing at the time.
Yep.
And it was revolutionizing the game of football.
Yep.
And he was a phenomenal coach because of it, because people couldn't figure out how to stop it. I think we just described Josh Heupel as well, because, I mean, like, if you watch any game with any commentator, they always talk about the wide splits and how the wide receivers are lining up literally outside the numbers. And they're like, how do you guard that? Like, how do you have, if you have an outside linebacker or a safety or a nickel or somebody, and they have to choose. Like, they can't stand in the gap and try to guard the run and the pass. They got to pick because otherwise you're leaving people open. And people are talking about like it's a gimmicky offense. What if it's just a really good offense, like a really smart offense that people hadn't figured out yet?
Yep.
I mean, like, it's in the top 5 in the country almost every single year for production. So, like, apparently it's just kind of good, When he was at Missouri, with, was it Drew Lock? Yeah, Drew Lock was his quarterback at Missouri. Missouri was, the year before Heupel became their offensive coordinator, Missouri was last in the SEC in offense. Last. The year that Josh Heupel took over at Missouri, they were first in the SEC. Like, that's a big jump. Okay, that's quite a jump. Something must be working, So that's the thing. Like, what makes a good coach? Well, people can't figure out how to stop what he's doing.
True.
Well, Heupel's done that so far, so that he's got that working for him.
So you have any concerns about recruiting or anything like that? Because I know you listen to some of the Vol fan base. They get a little antsy about recruiting and retaining players or whatever it may be. And so it's just like, or even developing players. Some people really, really questioned Heupel's ability to really see proper talent with the entire Milton thing last year. And so, and again, it's, the only other person that could play really behind Milton was Nico, and they didn't want to play Nico. And they could have played Gaston more, but it probably would have turned out even worse potentially. So what are your thoughts on that? Are you guys thinking that there's a recruiting issue, a retaining issue, just a development issue?
Or a Vol Twitter issue?
Or just a Vol Twitter issue?
The answer is typically Vol Twitter issue.
Yeah, that's usually the case, yeah.
Vol Nation is gloriously perfectionistic. If nothing, listen, we were complaining this year. I wasn't. Rustin and I weren't, but Vol Nation was complaining that Rick Barnes wasn't winning enough, and he went to the daggum Elite Eight. And I mean, like, it's crazy, man. Like, Vol Nation is gloriously perfectionistic, and if it's not perfect, then it can be better. And that's a great thing. It's also a toxic thing at times. But listen, I ain't got any issue with recruiting. I mean, my goodness, we just talked about we're going to have the number 1 overall recruit in the country starting behind center this year. When he graduates, another 5-star quarterback's going to take over for him and Jake Merklinger. Well, Nico ain't graduating. He's going after next year. Hopefully he gets his degree in 3 years and he does graduate. That'll help our academic progress rating. But after Jake Merklinger finishes, then you've got another 5-star quarterback, George McIntyre, taking over for him. I'm not concerned. We signed, 3 5-star players, to at least 2 5-star players this year. I'm not concerned about recruiting. But here's the real thing. Yeah, we signed 2 or 3 5-star dudes out of high school, but we also signed a 5-star left tackle who's going to be starting day one out of the transfer portal. So when you look at what they're doing in the transfer portal, recruiting is not just high school recruiting anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You got to recruit your own team,
Yep.
and you got to recruit other people's teams. And they knocked it out of the daggum park, man. Like, they knocked it out of the park in the transfer portal this year. So, I mean, there's nothing that people can say that, would make me view negatively our activity in the portal this year and who we retained. I mean, okay, think about this. Let's just talk about Gaston Moore. Like, that's a weird person to talk about the transfer portal.
Mm-hmm.
Gaston Moore went through senior day last year.
Mm-hmm.
He still had a year of eligibility. Clearly, he was going to transfer, and they kept him. They got him to stay, even though he knows he's not going to start over Nico.
Yeah.
Gaston can sling it, man. He can throw it a little bit.
Yeah.
So he knew he could go play somewhere, and they got him to stay.
Mhm.
So, I mean, it seems like a small victory, but it's not. It's a big victory, and especially when you got Lance Hurd out of it too.
Mm-hmm.
I think some of the people, I think recruiting in general is changing very quickly. And some of the people who complain about recruiting are struggling adjusting to a new environment. And, they're jonesing for fax machines that are never coming back.
Might be my favorite thing anybody said all night. They're jonesing for fax machines. I love it.
And I mean, I used to look forward to it. The first whatever in February, all the fax machines were going and everybody was standing close by the fax machine to see whose letter was coming in.
Extra toner in hand.
Yeah. But the reality is, I mean, we've said this on our show, or I have, I'm a big fan of coaches looking at high school kids and saying, hey, I don't want you to come here. I want you to go to South Florida and play your freshman and sophomore year, and then we'll come get you. Let's set you at a group of 5 school where you're going to get to go be a dude for 2 years and get reps and get better on the field. And then we'll come get you in the portal. And there's a lot of schools. Yeah, there's a lot of schools around the country that are now actively doing that. They're identifying, smaller schools and saying, hey, if you'll be our kind of JUCO for the next couple of years, we'll make sure this kid comes to you play him for 2 years, then we're coming back. And, that coach of that group of 5 schools, like, okay, I'll take that kid for 2 years. It helps me. There's even group of 5 schools who are now making that part of their recruiting pitch. Hey, if you're not sure if you're going to qualify, or if you aren't sure if you're going to play right away at this place, come play for us for 2 years. Then we'll let you go. And so I think people just need to get their mind wrapped around. I've said this on our show several times. I would rather we use all of our NIL money in the portal than on high school kids.
True.
Because the portal's going to contribute right away.
Yep.
That high school kid probably won't.
Yeah, there are a few talent that's able to go from just high school to be able to play just in the SEC alone, let alone any other college conference.
Right.
But I guess with all that being said, how do you feel like the prediction for Tennessee coming up this coming year?
Yeah, that's the fun stuff there.
Yeah.
I'm talking about.
15-0, right? 15-0.
You get a tattoo of it too?
What a question. I'll start to play Georgia. That's the thing. Like, people. All right, so I'm gonna say this. 2 years ago in the 2022 season, I predicted Tennessee would go 10-2 and win a New Year's Six bowl game.
Okay.
And that's exactly what happened. They went 10-2 and won a New Year's Six bowl game. Now, the only thing I missed in that prediction was I said they would beat South Carolina and lose to Alabama, and they flip-flopped that. But that was the only thing I missed in that prediction. Here's the thing. It's sad that we can't look ahead more and more and more, but the transfer portal's kind of done away with that.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say this: the most important game on Tennessee's schedule is Week 4 in Norman, Oklahoma.
Yep.
That is Nico's first true road game, and I think we're going to find out a whole lot about Tennessee when they travel to Norman.
Yep.
I think we'll know way more then. But if I had to go on record right now, I I really want to say 11-1. I really do,
That I don't know.
but I'm not.
I feel like
I
it's
really want to though. I'm going to say 10-2 just to play it safe because you do have a first-year starter at quarterback. But
That was a good job of like reeling us in and then just like pulling it back.
yeah,
I appreciate your optimism
y'all-
regardless.
they got playmakers all over the field,
Yep.
and people don't realize it, and people are about to find out.
Yeah.
You're going to see points on that scoreboard. They got dudes all over the place.
Can't say their names, but they got them all there.
Yeah,
That's right. That's right. That's exactly right.
I will say 11-1. I think Tennessee's schedule lays out really nicely for them. I'm not as concerned about Oklahoma as Evan is. I think they got major issues, and I think those issues are going to get exposed this year. They're breaking in a new offensive coordinator. They've got an entirely new offensive line. They got a new quarterback. You win the SEC in the trenches. Starting 5 new offensive linemen with a new coordinator is not a recipe for success.
Against Tennessee's defensive line.
Yeah. So I think Oklahoma is going to have some issues. The only game I think we lose, now, this is a big if Nico is healthy the entire season, I think the only team we lose to is Georgia. It's in Athens. That's just next to impossible to go win in there.
tough.
And they're just, they're already better than us. And then that on top of it, it's in Athens. If Nico gets hurt and it becomes the Gaston Moore show, depending on where that happens in the season, now it's more like 8-4, 9-3. Just because he does have a ton of skill guys around him that could make up. But this offense is a quarterback-driven offense. Yeah. So if it becomes the Gaston Moore show, could be more like 8-4, 9-3.
Sure. Well, and one thing I will say, like I remember, wasn't this past year with the orange and white game, but the previous year, Gaston Moore was one of the only guys that was able to consistently go down the field with his second and third stringers that he had at his disposal.
Yeah,
and he
can sling.
He can sling it, and he seemed to have the same kind of tempo that Hooker had. So, and it bodes well that he's been in that system for 5 years. So
he can sling it, and he's accurate.
Yep. And so it's just he's just not as big and he's not as fast as some of the other guys that you would have. So totally get that.
We were stunned that he came back because there were some group of 5 schools like Coastal Carolina, some really good programs that were looking for a quarterback, and he made total sense. Like it would have been an easy thing for him to walk in and be their day one starter, and kind of shocked that he came back.
Mm-hmm. That's when you know you got something special. I mean, that's when somebody like that wants to stay. I mean,
it tells you a lot about the environment that's there. It's nothing like Colorado, I would say.
Speaking of Dirk Carter.
Yeah, exactly. But hey, there are still people like Colorado fans who think Boo Carter is still coming to Colorado. I'm sure.
I think he's going to flip over the summer.
Yeah. The day before signing day, they were still saying he's coming.
Good luck.
He was an early enrollee, participated in all of spring practice, and has already taken 12 hours at UT. But Colorado fans are still saying he's coming.
Right.
It's okay. They say dream. He picked the wrong mountain range. Like he doesn't know the geography stuff that well. Like there you go.
Yeah, he nailed it.
That's well, yeah. Well, guys, we appreciate you coming on and for all the UT knowledge that you instilled in all of us, especially Michael here, who doesn't know much about them.
No.
But can you?
I don't think he knows where it's located.
Yeah, no, he doesn't. It's somewhere in Tennessee.
Yeah.
But where can we find you? Where can everybody find you guys? Twitter, YouTube, all that good stuff.
Go ahead, Evan.
Well, it's easy. On Twitter, Facebook, well, I guess X, the artist formerly known as Twitter. Twitter, X, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, all of it is at the Vol Bros. At the Vol Bros. And if make it really easily, you can just go to volbros.com or thevolbros.com. Either one, they'll both take you to the same place. That beautiful shirt Rustin's wearing right now, that Everything School shirt, you can buy that at thevolbros.com.
Right.
It is an Everything School. Women's tennis just went to the Final Four. First school in SEC history to win men's basketball regular season championship, softball and baseball regular season championships all in the same year. The rowing team is apparently kicking tail and taking names. I'm not sure how they're doing now, but the women's rowing team were beating everybody like 2 weeks ago. And the men's golf team was the #1 seed in the NCAA tournament. So, I mean, hey, man, everything's cool. That's a great shirt.
You guys got a lot to talk about.
Allbrooks.com.
There was a moment this spring that all 8 spring sports were in the top 15 in the country at the same time. That's hard to
That's insane.
Danny White knows what he's doing.
He does.
Definitely he does.
Well, gentlemen, we do appreciate you coming on, and we look forward to having you on later in the season.
Thank you so much. We really do appreciate it.
Thank you.
You all.
Thank you.